years ago, a day lasted just 21 hours. If this is true, then why does it feel like there's not enough hours in the day? Number 5, your brain is constantly eating itself. This process is called phagocytosis. I hope I pronounced that right. Where cells envelop and consume smaller cells or molecules to remove them from the system. That's a relief to know. Number 6, the largest piece of fossilized dinosaur poo discovered is over 30 centimeters long and over 2 liters in volume. Believed to be from a Tyrannosaurus rex, the fossil helps scientists better understand what the dinosaur ate. Number 7, the universe's average color is called cosmic latte. Cosmic latte. Cosmic latte. That's a really, really cool name. In a 2002 study, astronomers found that the light coming from galaxies averaged into a beige color. Number 8, animals can experience time differently from humans. To smaller animals, the world around them moves more slowly compared to humans. Salamanders and lizards, for example, experience time more slowly than cats and dogs. This is because the perception of time depends on how quickly the brain can process incoming information. Interesting. Number 9, water might not be wet. This finally puts that argument to rest. This is because most scientists define wetness as a liquid's ability to maintain contact with a solid surface, meaning that water itself is not wet but can make other objects wet. Number 10, a chicken once lived for 18 months without a head. Mike the chicken's incredible feat was recorded back in the 1940s in the US. He survived as his jugular vein and most of his brainstem were left mostly intact, ensuring just enough brain function remained for survival. In the majority of cases, a headless chicken dies in a matter of minutes. Number 11, bacteria stacked on top of each other would stretch for 10 billion light years. Together, Earth's 0.001 millimeter long microbes could wrap around the Milky Way around 20,000 times. Number 12, wearing a tie can reduce blood flow to the brain by 7.5%. A study in 2018 found that wearing a necktie can reduce the blood flow to your brain by up to this percentage, causing you to feel dizzy, nauseous, and have headaches. This can also... Number 13, the fear of long words is called hippopotomonstrosis squipedale. The 36-letter word was first used by the Roman poet Horace in the 1st century BCE to criticize those writers with an unreasonable penchant for long words. It was American poet Amy Nezhukumatathil, possibly afraid of their own surname, who coined the term we know it in 2000. Number 14, the world's oldest dog lived to 29.5 years old. While the median age a dog reaches tends to be around 10 to 15 years, one Australian cattle dog, Bluey, survived to the ripe old age of 29.5. I hope that the dog had a very happy life. Number 15. The world's oldest cat lived to 38 years old and 3 days. Cream Puff was the oldest cat to ever live. 16. The sun makes a sound, but we can't hear it. In the form of pressure waves, the sun does make a sound. The wavelength of the pressure waves from the sun is measured in hundreds of miles. octopuses don't actually have tentacles. They have 8 limbs, but they're arms for most species. Technically, when talking about cephalopods, which is like octopuses or squids, etc., scientists define tentacles as limbs with suckers at their end, octopus arms. On most maps, the Mercator projection, which was first developed in 1569, is still widely used. This method is wildly inaccurate and makes Alaska appear as large as Brazil and Greenland, 14 times larger than it actually is. For a map to be completely accurate, it would need to be life-size and round, not flat. Yeah, I think that this is something I learned in high school, because um, it also depends on the map maker and maybe sort of like their own biases, where, if they're very Eurocentric, if it's coming from like a European map maker, obviously their maps are going to be skewed Eurocentrically. So they, have made maps where the scale of certain continents like Europe and Africa are not true to life. And oftentimes Africa appears to be much smaller than it actually is. But I know I didn't do too much research on this. I think this is just something that I can recall off the top of my head from one of my classes. But I always thought that was interesting because so much of how we first view the world comes from these illustrations, hanging up in the library or in our classrooms. And the fact that those initial contexts may be wrong because of the way that somebody has drawn the map, it's like an interesting and kind of jarring thought, right? Because off the gate, back when map making was in its nascency, I think is an interesting time period, because I imagine that it would be very difficult to have to, manually go and like draw the places that you've been to and like get the scale of it right, when they didn't have, the advanced technology that we do today. So I wonder how they did it. I guess we can't fault them for the inaccuracy of their maps then, right? Because they did the best they could with what they had. But certainly if there are things that are false about the way the maps are made, or the maps that are widely spread today, then that should be corrected. Number 21. NASA generally faked part of the moon landing. While Neil Armstrong's first steps on the lunar surface were categorically not faked, the astronaut quarantine protocol when the astronauts arrived back on Earth was largely just one big show. Wait, let me just read that again because of how insane that sounds. Not insane, but it's just like, if this is generally true, that's really shocking. So, number 21 is NASA genuinely faked part of the moon landing. While Neil Armstrong's first steps on the lunar surface were not faked, the astronaut quarantine protocol when the astronauts arrived back on Earth was largely just one big show. Oh, okay, so I guess part of the most famous part, which I think we're all aware of, is when Neil Armstrong touches down to one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. I think that that's the quote that we're all aware of, but that part seems to be true according to this. What was faked was when they arrived back to Earth, which honestly I can't really say that I remember what happened. But yeah, apparently though. Number 22. Common smell like rotten eggs. A common smells like rotten eggs, urine, burning matches, and almonds. Traces of hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, sulfur dioxide, and hydrogen cyanide were all found in the makeup of the comet 67P to if I turn on, like a stand-up comedy show on YouTube, it kind of lifts my spirit because I'm able to just. Okay, number 25 is chainsaws were first invented for childbirth. It was developed in Scotland in the late 18th century to help aid and speed up the process of simophysiotomy. Why are these words so difficult? Simophysiotomy. Simophysiotomy. Jeez. Simophysiotomy. It wasn't until the start of the 20th century that we started using chainsaws for wood chopping. If you're a woman giving childbirth in Scotland in the 18th century and a chainsaw was used, that is brutal. Number 26. Ants don't have lungs. They breathe through spiracles, 9 or 10 tiny openings depending on the species. Ants are fascinating creatures. The fact that they have an exoskeleton, which is basically like a hard shell protecting their insides, and they're able to live 10 times their own body weight, it's really amazing. The way that they work together as a hive and build like structures as complex as anthills. Amazing creatures. Number 27. The T-Rex likely had feathers. No way, really. Scientists in China discovered early Cretaceous period Tyrannosaur skeletons that were covered in feathers. If the ancestors of the T-Rex had feathers, the T-Rex probably did too. I mean, because of like evolution, right? Just because your predecessors had certain features, it doesn't mean that that carried over in the later offsprings of that ancestor, right? Like our ancestors were the early hominids, right? And a lot of them had. I mean, there was like different types of hominids, right? And they're all like differently related, but I think one feature is that they had a very big sloping forehead, and that's not something that really carried over to us as Homo sapiens. So I don't really think that this is true. I mean, it certainly could be true, but what I'm saying is like the premise of saying just because an ancestor of the T-Rex had feathers, therefore the T-Rex also had feathers, is just a little bit dubious. But, let me know what you think. The color of your clothes can affect how you're perceived by others and change how you feel. A review of football matches in the last 55 years, for example, showed that teams wearing a red kit consistently played better in home matches than teams in any other color. That's pretty interesting. I mean, I don't know much about sports and football, but I can attest to the fact of how what you wear affects your mood and your behavior. Like when I feel a little bit down about myself and I need a confidence boost, even if I don't feel like it, I force myself. When I go out into the world, I feel like I'm putting on an armor, right? And just that alone lifts my spirits. Another theory, and how it affects your mood is definitely something that I believe is real. Okay, number 29. Wind turbines kill between 10,000 and 100,000 birds each year in the UK. Whoa. Interestingly, painting one of the blades of a wind turbine black can reduce bird deaths by 70%. That is a great fact. Not great as in like that's good news, but it's nice that they provided something to counteract this really gruesome fact. I never knew that wind turbines had such a big bird casualty. Yeah, I mean they should definitely paint more study in 1993 showed that the maximum power a horse can produce is 18,000 watts, around 24 horsepower. Okay, 33. Your signature could reveal personality traits. A study in 2016 reports that among men, a larger signature correlates with a higher social bravado, and among women, a bigger signature correlates with narcissistic traits. What is the difference between higher? 35. Bananas are radioactive. Due to being rich in potassium, every banana is actually slightly radioactive, thanks to containing the natural isotope potassium 40. Your body contains around 16 mg of potassium 40, meaning you're around 280 times more radioactive than a banana already. 36. There is no such thing as a straight. Zoom in close enough to anything and you'll spot irregularities. Even a laser light beam is slightly curved. Oh, that would be so difficult for perfectionists or people with OCD. They don't need to know. Ignorance is bliss, as I always like to say. 37. Deaf people are known to use sign language in their sleep. A case study of a 71-year-old man with rapid eye movement disorder and a severe hearing impairment showed him using fluid sign language in his sleep, with researchers able to get an idea of what he was dreaming about thanks to those signs. I mean, that makes sense, right? Because just like how people have any other like spoken language as their first language, I'm sure that they dream in that language. And also, if they're prone to, if sign language is like their first, if that's their language that they know, their first language, then obviously, it doesn't surprise me that they would also be using that in their dreams. 38. Finland is the happiest country on earth. According to the World Happiness Report, it has been for 6 years in a row. It's not really surprising, given that Finland is the home of Santa Claus, reindeer, and one sauna for every 1.59 people. Yeah, I think I've heard something like reminiscent to this fact. I'm not sure if it was Finland or another Scandinavian country. It was complex to understand. Oh, like by what metrics are they measuring happiness in this country, and why, if it is called the happiest country on earth, then are there, these mass problems with mental health and with self-harm? Yeah. I think it was Sweden, if I'm not mistaken. I really hope I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I've never actually been to Finland, and I think it will be really interesting to go one day. I didn't know that it was also the home of Santa Claus. That's surprising. 39. Hippos can't swim. Hippos really do have big bones, so big and dense in fact that they're barely buoyant at all. They don't swim and instead perform a slow motion was some like research done of how algae can be used to also like clean up particles, harmful particles in the air. Don't quote me on that though. I could be just talking nonsense for all I know. Number 43. You can be heavily cryptic. Pregnancies aren't that uncommon, with 1 in 500 not recognized at least halfway through, and 1 in 2,500 not known till labor starts. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I've seen those like videos on YouTube where it's like, oh, I was pregnant and I didn't even know it. And I think the first thing that you think of is like, oh, well, like, how could you not know? Because, you know, your stomach can expand visibly once you get into your like second or third trimester. So you definitely do hear of those cases, but it's interesting how does it work, you know? I mean, I know not all women have very visible round bellies when they're pregnant, but what is the science behind that, you know? Because like a baby is still being formed, like fully. Never mind. Number 44. Bacteria on your skin cause your itches. Specifically, bacteria known as Staphylococcus aureus. Okay. It can release a chemical that activates a protein in our nerves. This sends a signal from our skin to our brains, which our brain perceives as an itch. Interesting. 45. Starfish don't have bodies, along with other echinoderms like sea urchins and sand dollars. Technically, their entire bodies are classified. 47. You travel 2.5 million kilometers a day around the sun without realizing. The Earth's orbit travels around 2.5 million kilometers with respect to the sun's center, and around 19 million kilometers with respect to the center of the Milky Way. 48. Fish form orderly queues in emergencies. When evacuating through narrow spaces and sketchy situations, schools of neon tetrafish queue so that they don't collide or clog up the line. Scientists interpreted this behavior as showing that fish can respect social rules even in emergency situations, unlike us humans. Wow, that's crazy. This BBC article is basically calling fish better than humans. 49. There are more bacterial cells in your body than human cells. The average human is around 56% bacteria. This was discovered in a 2016 study and is far less than the early estimates of 90% less. What? 56 is considered good. As bacteria are so light, however, by weight each person is over 99.7% human. Well, I would hope so. Yeah. 50. Okay. This is the last one I'm gonna do. Most ginger cats are male. There are roughly 3 ginger male cats to 1 ginger female. This is because the ginger gene is found on the X chromosome, meaning female cats would require 2 copies of the gene to become ginger, whilst males only need 1. Okay, so that is the video for today. I stopped